Okay. Well, let's hope that the phone calls don't continue to disrupt everything today. I don't anticipate this one taking very long. We only have 11 slides to go through, and actually, two of those are cover slides, so there's not a ton of material here. Um, so we'll go through this PowerPoint probably fairly quickly. Ask me if you have questions. Okay, doesn't matter how little you think the question is or if you think the question is dumb. Hannah, do you have your hand up for a reason? Hannah, it looks like you have your hand raised in the little icon thingy. You hit a button, I think. I'm gonna lower your hand. Apparently there's a button you can click to raise your hand. It shows up in the thing there. Okay. So let's Oh, look, Bella has a hand up now. Did you have a question, Bella, or are you just saying hi? You guys are funny. Okay, so we're going to start moving through these slides. Let me know if you have questions as we go. Nobody has questions here, I assume? They're recording, right? This is going to be really fast if you guys don't have any questions at all.
I actually have one question.
Okay.
Um, for the one before, do we need to know like the major, like the amount of the major minerals and everything like that?
I mean, it's just more or less than 100 milligrams.
Okay,
Uh,
so that's all you would need to know.
yeah, I mean that's really all it is major minerals you need more than 100 milligrams or more, and trace minerals you need less than that. So, I mean, I don't know that I'll ask you anything about it, but it's a pretty easy piece of information to keep track of. So, I would say it's not going to hurt. Bella, did you raise your hand on purpose?
Yes, I don't know why it raised it. I didn't press a button, but I do have a question.
Okay.
So, so in the pre-reading, we had to write like there was a chart, and I said like the different vitamins, and it also had like really specific names. Do you guys remember those specific names, or just like B6, B12, vitamin
B6,
A?
B12, vitamin E, and honestly, for the most part, if they're not specifically mentioned in the PowerPoint, I'm probably not going to ask you a lot of detailed questions about them.
Okay, I just
Right?
want to make sure because the words are hard. So,
Yeah. 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 Pharmacology words generally are. Any other questions about this stuff? A lot of this stuff should be familiar from last semester and from other biology classes that you've had.
Okay, for the all those G ones, they keep confusing me.
Okay, so a couple of things you want to think about. First of all, glyco and gluco both refer to sugar, right? So we know when we talk about anything glyco or gluco related, we're talking about sugar. Okay. So glycogenesis, genesis generally means to create. Okay. So we're going to take excess glucose, extra sugar that's in the body, and we're going to use it to turn it into glycogen. Remember way back to AMP1, at the very beginning of AMP1, glycogen came up as the storage form of sugar in your liver and your muscles, right? So if you have excess sugar in your bloodstream, your body is going to undergo glycogenesis to turn that glucose into glycogen, which we can then store in your muscles and in your liver. Okay, so that's the building. We take glucose and we build it into glycogen. Okay, glycogenolysis. What does lysis tell you?
It's the breakdown.
Right. Lysis means to break down, so it's basically the opposite, right? Glycogenolysis is the undoing of glycogenesis. Glycogenolysis takes glycogen that is stored in the muscles and the liver and breaks it down and turns it into glucose that your cells can actually use to make ATP. Okay? Now, gluconeogenesis is making glucose from something other than is making glucose from amino acids and glycerols. Okay? So if you are not eating enough carbs and your body doesn't have enough glucose, but it does have access to amino acids and glycerol from your diet, it will take those amino acids and that glycerol, undergo gluconeogenesis, and turn that into glucose. That glucose can then undergo glycogenesis if it needs to become glycogen. Does that help? Yeah. So it's really important that you pay attention to the roots of those words, right? And when you see a bunch of words that all look the same, understanding and paying attention to those roots is what will help you be able to differentiate them. You want to make sure you take your time on the exam when these questions come up so that you're not accidentally picking the wrong one, right? Okay. Any other questions about this? Okay. Questions here?
There were a lot of questions on the homework about changes in basal metabolic rate and how those things can affect it and function. How much attention should we pay attention, or should we utilize on that?
I mean, you want to have a basic understanding. If you understand, a lot of this is common sense, right? So what is your basal metabolic rate?
Metabolism functions when resting.
Right. So I always like to refer to BMR as sort of your coma level calories, right? If you were in a coma and you weren't doing anything else except maintaining basic functions for life, that is what your BMR requirements are. Okay? So thinking about what's going to increase your BMR, what sort of things might make your BMR higher?
Working out and hormone problems.
Hormone changes, working out, building muscle, right? Anything that requires your body to do more work when it's resting means that your BMR is going to go up, right? So it costs your body more energy to maintain muscle mass than it does to maintain body fat. It doesn't cost your body anything to maintain body fat, right? So if you build muscle, your basal metabolic rate goes up, which means that while you're doing nothing, your body is using more energy. It also means you need to increase the amount of calories you bring in order to maintain the same body weight. Okay? So it's sort of common sense in terms of what's going to cause an increase and what's going to cause a decrease. What causes your body to use less energy, right? Losing muscle mass, low activity levels, those sorts of things are going to reduce the amount of energy that your body is going to use when it's resting. So as long as you can sort of reason out, anything I'm going to ask you is going to be something that you should be able to sort of reason out if you understand the basics of how your body works. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Other questions here? Nope. Okay. Questions here? No. This one should be pretty familiar by this point. We've talked about temperature regulation about 9,000 times in the last 2 semesters. Okay, well, that's the end of that PowerPoint. So what else do you guys have questions about, or do you have other questions?
Is the next exam not going to have a lot of focus or an equivalent focus on nutrition since it was such a small chapter?
The way that the questions are assigned is generally dependent on how many concepts there are in each chapter. So the chapters that have more concepts, the systems that have more concepts are going to have more questions because I break the pools up by concept. And so, yeah, you would assume that you will have fewer questions per on chapter 25 because there are fewer concepts involved. Chapter 25 in a normal semester where we were teaching, you know, back when I used to do regular lectures, which I honestly probably won't ever do again. 24 and 25 basically did at the same time because there's very little with 25. The purpose of doing it this way is that honestly it gave you guys sort of a breather week, right? You got a little bit of, you know, this is not complicated stuff, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there was even any lab material associated with this week, so you kind of get a break before we roll into urinary, which is fairly intensive, right? We'll spend 2 weeks on the urinary system. And so, yeah, it's not a, there are things I could have given you that are more intense in the chapter 25, but it's not stuff that I think is important enough as important as giving you kind of a little breather along with some of the basic information here. So hopefully that break has been useful to you guys. Little breathing
It's
room.
very much appreciated.
I try. I do what I can, man. Does anybody have questions about midterm grades or how, I mean, not your individual grades. I'm not going to talk about individual grades on here, obviously. But, you know, if you have questions about how they were calculated, if you have questions about, you know, what they mean in terms of the rest of the semester, you know, we can talk about that sort of stuff. What kind of questions do you have about that?
For that one, I had a question because so the one that's on the cell, and there's one that's also on our actual grade one that has the actual grade on it.
Should be the same letter grade.
So like, but would we go off of that actual grade, not the
So
letter,
the
but
percentage in Blackboard is what I use to identify the letter, right?
okay.
If you were borderline in terms of you were at a 9 point something, so if you were at let's say an 89.3, I went ahead and rounded that up to an A. It technically isn't an A yet, but if you're at an 89.3 and you continue working at the level that you're working at, you will be at least an 89.5 before the end of the semester. So I went ahead and rounded anything that was a 9, 69, 79, 89 up. Remember that if at the end of the semester you've done everything, you haven't missed a single assignment, you actually will get rounded from an 8.5. So if you know, if at the end of the semester you've completed every assignment and you're sitting at an 88.5 instead of an 89.5, you still get an A. So, that it just kind of gives you an idea. So when you're looking at that percentage, if you're looking at that percentage and going, well, that's not actually an A, but it says I have an A, that's why. Um, I think what I just saw pop up on the chat. Remember, guys, I can't always see the chat long enough to be able to read everything, but I think what I just saw was a question about, does it include the extra credit? The only extra credit that is not included, because I don't think I've put it in yet, is the points for attending WebEx sessions for exam 2. Everything else, let me put it this way. Everything that is in Blackboard that was due before yesterday, Wednesday, whatever, yesterday, was included in the score. So if it's in Blackboard and it was due before yesterday, so basically due by Saturday, then it was included in the score. What it does not include is the redemptive final, which can replace one or all of your exams. It doesn't include the voting extra credit because that gets attached to exam 3, which you guys will take at the end of the month. And it doesn't include a massive ton of homework assignments. If you go back and you look at the grade distribution, because as I was doing grades yesterday, I stopped and went back and looked at it. If you got 100% on all of the homework assignments and the quizzes, all of the things that you have access to your book to do, right? If you scored 100% on all of those things and you did not take any of the exams, you could get a D in this class. Okay, that's having zeros for all of the exams. So when I see grades that are below a D, I start to wonder whether or not students are actually putting in any effort or doing any of the work, because that tells me not only are you not doing well on the exams, you're not doing well on the homework, and you have access to the answers on the homework, and you can take them as many times as you need to. So I get a little frustrated with that. I am more than happy to talk to anybody who has concerns about their grade and they're thinking about, maybe I should drop the class. Don't drop the class until you talk to me, unless you are 100% sure that you just aren't going to do the kind of work or put in the kind of effort that you need to in order to do well. If you go back and you look at your grades over, throughout Blackboard, and you see a lot of missing grades or a lot of grades that are, below an 80%, then what you need to ask yourself before you schedule a meeting with me to talk about your study skills is, am I willing to make the changes that are necessary to make an improvement in the grade? Because if that is what you're seeing in your grade book, then I will tell you right now that you are not putting in enough effort to succeed. And I don't mean that to be, harsh or make you feel like you're, not capable or whatever. Everybody in this class is capable. The question is, are you willing? And that's sort of the real talk conversation that I tend to have a lot this time of the semester, which is, is it important enough to you to actually put in the work and to actually pay attention to what's going on in the class to make the changes in order to improve your grade? And if it is, then I'm all in. Send me a message. We'll schedule a meeting. We'll talk about what we need to do and what we can do to get things brought up. But you have to be willing to do the work. Other questions? I sort of feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. That, 12 of you that show up to these meetings are generally not the 12 that need to hear that, but in the vain hope that someone might listen to the video later. What is happening? Stop calling me. All right, I stopped sharing because, well, the phone call came in, but also because we're not looking at PowerPoints anymore. You guys have any other questions?
Oops, sorry. I have a question.
Huh?
So, the assignments that you said that we all have to do in order to get rounded up from the 88.5, does that include extra credit assignments as well?
That includes, yeah.
Okay.
And let me explain to you why. Here's the why for that, okay? If at the end of the semester you're sitting at an 88.5 and you did not do extra credit that was worth, 3 to 5 points, those 3 to 5 points would likely have moved you to the 89.5 that you need anyway. And so I can't rationalize rounding up when you haven't done everything you could possibly do on your own.
Yes, ma'am. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's why that policy has sort of always been that way, because, my thing is, if you've done everything and you're that close to the next letter grade, odds are good that there was a question or two somewhere in a homework assignment, in an exam, in a quiz, that either wasn't a fair question or that had some sort of screwy thing with Connect that they got marked wrong and they shouldn't have, and those points may have gotten you where you needed to be. And so I tend to err on the side of you, err on the side of your benefit. If you've done all of the things you could possibly do, then I will give you a little help from that 88.5 or 78.5 or whatever, because of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go bark at whoever it is to bark at.
How are all the
So-
extra credit stuff added?
Depends on what it is.
So I know we usually get like one or two based on just the homework, and then sometimes you'll throw in like an extra thing that it's specific. You say specifically it's for the exam, but how do those get added in?
So if you go and you look at exam, I think it was exam 2. You guys have only taken 2, right?
Yes.
I'm struggling with the A&P 1, A&P 2 stuff. If you go and you look, there is a column that says, or that should say, exam 2 total. And if you click the description for exam 2 total, it will tell you what is included in that exam score. Okay. And what it will tell you is it's basically the raw score plus whatever it was. I gave you guys some sort of extra credit thing for exam 2. I don't remember what it was, but those points get added to the points that you earn out of 75. And then that new total gets divided by 75 to create your percentage. And the same thing will happen with the voting. The voting points will get added to the points that you earn on exam 3. Like I said, I still have to add in the WebEx attendance for exam 2 for you guys, and there will be WebEx attendance points for exam 3 as well. And those will also get added. And when I add that to your exam 2 total, I will update the description to include those points. I try with all of the calculated columns that aren't clearly what they are to make sure that I include what's included in that calculation. Particularly if you get to the major percentages for your midterm grades, like the midterm exam, the description on that's going to tell you that it includes exam 1 and exam 2, the total columns. The lab practical, midterm lab practical is going to tell you that it only includes lab practical 1 because the only one you've taken, right? Your lab quiz grade is based on 1 quiz because you've only had 1. Your lecture quiz grade is based on 2 quizzes. You've had 2 of those, and it tells you in there what those are. As far as where extra credit assignments are going to go, if you look at the categories associated with those extra credit assignments, that will tell you where they're going to go. If it's going on an exam, that category will say exam adjustment. And it will always go on the exam that has the associated material. Okay? The homework will just say connect homework. But you'll notice that the column in Blackboard says that it's worth 0 points. Right? So you've earned 5 out of 0 possible points, which means that you've got an extra 5 points. Right? So when it's calculating a total percentage, there's 0 in that column for it to base off of. Does that make sense?
Yes. I was just asking because I made a loose grade calculator for the class, but I don't know how to do the extra credit, but now that I know how you word
one thing is this. Well, so most of the extra credit is so here's what I can do. I generally hesitate to do this because it usually causes some form of panic. I can make visible for you guys the columns that I will be using in Blackboard to calculate your final grade at the end of the semester. However, you have to understand that when I do that, those grades are going to look really, really low right now because they're going to include all of the assignments you haven't done yet. Okay? So as you do assignments, those percentages will come up. But when I make them available, I get a panicked email from 700 students saying, "Oh my God, why does it say I've got a 50% on my homework when I've gotten hundreds on all of them?" You don't have a 50%. You just have only completed 50% of the of the work that's out there. So
so it's just like the Alex homework from chemistry.
Well, so it's not really. So the way that the percentage is calculated is it takes the total number of points that you've earned on all the potential homework assignments, and it divides it by the total number of points possible on all the homework assignments. So when I create the columns for the final, all of the points that are possible are in the denominator, but you haven't completed all of the points possible that you could do, right? If you've only done half of them, then, let's say there's 2,000 points possible in homework, which is not far from possible. So there's 2,000 total points possible, and you've only completed 1,000 of them, then your grade is going to look like a 50%. Right? Assuming that you've earned 1,000 of them, right? And so that's it. I don't mind putting them up. I just want to make sure you understand that that is what's going to happen with those columns. And as you complete assignments, things will start to balance out. The grade that you have right now in your midterm grade is probably the most accurate midterm grade I've ever given because it included everything that has been done up through Saturday. And so it's a very good indicator of where you are in the class right now. It is not necessarily the only indicator of how you will finish the class, which is why I say if you're thinking about dropping the class, reach out to me first, because being able to take the final and replace an exam or all of the exams, if you take exam 3 and your exam average is an 85 and you come in and get a 90 on the final, the 90 is what gets counted. The average of those other exams goes away. So there's a lot of variability in the way that the semester can finish. The final exam will never, ever make your grade lower. It can only make your grade higher, because if it makes your grade, if it's lower than your exams, it doesn't count for anything. So, I always go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, let's say if somehow we get an 80 on the exam, on the final exam, would that change all of the other exams to an 80, or would it round off to an 80?
No. So what happens is, hang on, let me do this on my laptop. Hang on, I'm gonna shift you guys around here. That off my desk, off my lap. You guys are in my lap. I have all of you sitting in my lap right now. Very awkward. All right. Let's share an X. Not that close. Oh boy. All right. You know what? I'm going to do this on here because I can just write. It's just going to be easier. Hang on. Trying to do all of the things. All right. Let's start the broadcast again. And give me blank page. Okay, so let's say that on exam 1, somebody throw out a grade for exam 1.
74.
Okay. Exam 2.
81.
Okay. Exam 3.
61. LOL.
Not a lot of confidence in that one. All right. Final. You said what, Maddie? An 80?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, somebody whip out a calculator and average 74, 81, and 61. What is the average of those three?
$72.
72. Okay. So average 1 is 72%. Now average, so the second average, the final exam is going to replace the 61. So that gives me a 74, an 81, and an 80. What is that average?
A 78.3.
78.3. So that's average 2. And then the final exam, which is going to be average 3, is an 80%. So at the end of the semester, I will do, well, actually Blackboard will do all three of these calculations. The highest of these, which in this case is the 80, is the percentage that gets included in that 35% exam grade in your syllabus. Okay? So it just depends. If this 80 had been a 90, then that would have made this a 90. What is that average?
$81.6.
81.6. Okay, so 90 still counts, so we're going to use the final. But, if let's say on exam 1 you had gotten an 85, and on exam 2 you had gotten an 80 or a 95, and then exam 3 you get to 61, then this average is going to be higher. You see sort of how this works. So when I say it can replace one or all, right? What I mean is it can replace the lowest exam, or I can use just this grade and it will replace all of your exams. Okay? Or if, you know, if you come in and you have, you know, if these are your 81, 61, and you come in and you take the final and you get a 60, then it doesn't count at all. We take this average. Okay? So it can't hurt you under any circumstance. I always encourage students, you know, just plan to take the final. If you're positive you're going to get an A, take it for the hell of it. Don't study for it. See how much you remember. Okay? Other questions?
Yeah, speaking of the final, after this exam, are we going to have extra WebEx sessions to go over like a final prep since we don't have a SI to help us out with it?
I am more than happy to. So your final, hang on, let me pull up a calendar here. Calendar. I can see my craziness. Okay. So the last day of class is like the 25th, the 24th or the 25th. Whoops. So basically you guys have from, does anybody remember what the dates were that I gave you guys for exam 3? Anybody? Let me pull up the syllabus.
I know the lab practical is on the 21st. I think the exam 3 is on the 24th.
I think, well, so the exam 3, you have a range of dates. You could take it. Hang on, let me pull up
It's between the 24th and the 30th of November.
Okay, so you can take exam 3 anytime from the 24th to the 30th. Okay, that gives you basically a week. Okay, your final starts. You can take it anywhere from the 4th to the 11th, I believe. 3rd to the 11th, somewhere in there. I am willing to schedule something the first week of December before the final if you guys are going to come with questions. I don't ever plan reviews. I am more than happy to answer questions. If you guys have put together a study guide and you're you know, wanting to sit down and answer some questions and those sorts of things, I am more than happy to do that. As far as I'm concerned, we can just keep the Thursday at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock thing for the 3rd and meet then, since that seems to be the time that, you know, or it was the time that most people were available. If that's what you guys want to do, I'm happy to do that. But you'll want to make sure that you've, you know, gone through and done some review and done some studying, that you're coming in with questions. I'm happy to spend as much time as necessary on that. I would encourage you to go back and look at the exam questions that you got on the first 3 exams, because they will tell you what concepts you need to focus on for studying for the final.
Are we able to access the results of the exam?
When you click the report, You should be able to. Yes. And I will probably give you guys some kind of a connect assignment, probably extra credit that will go towards the final, that will include questions from all of the chapters. It won't be comprehensive, in terms of it will be comprehensive in terms of covering all of the material that we've discussed. It will not be comprehensive in terms of you can study that and you don't have to study anything else and be good for the final. Right? That's the thing students tend to make the mistake of, is that, oh, she gave us this extra credit assignment that covers all of the material, so that's all I need to do is I need to do that and make sure I'm good, and then that will be it. And that's a bad idea. Y'all realize we're down to like 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
That's scary.
I know, right? It's like, holy crap. Yeah, we're down to like 3 weeks. Tomorrow is the first. No, tomorrow's the 31st. Wait, what is today? Thursday? Saturday's the 31st. Sunday's the 1st. And oh yeah, don't forget the time changes on Sunday. Yeah, make a note of that. I mean, I don't really worry about it. All my clocks are digital. They all do it themselves. But except for my car. I always get in my car and panic. It's like, oh crap, no. All right, well, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm gonna hop off of here. I've got another group coming in here shortly, but if you need to talk, you know how to get a hold of me. And we will start talking urinary system next week. Be prepared. Enjoy the week off. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.